My way down the first floor, but halfway down, my light reached something at the bottom of the stairs that stopped me cold in my tracks. Standing in the corner of the stairway, next to the exit, stood an absolute horrid creature, stood hunched facing the corner.
I gotta go potty.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Darkling Chronicles. I hope you're having a beautiful, beautiful Sunday. That's the most important thing. I don't know if you can hear them, but the birds are singing. The sun has just come back out after being cloudy for a few days. And yeah, obviously nature's happy about it. So, that's pretty cool. I'm not going to lie, I am feeling quite mentally drained today. For no other reason other than hormones. You know how it is, ladies. And it's just been really busy and hectic lately, and I am obviously so grateful for that. There's lots of beautiful blessings in my life that I'm so grateful for. But there's a lot also going on personally at the moment. Unfortunately, my uncle is going to pass soon. Really strange having to listen to your mum talk about planning someone's funeral who is still alive at the moment. But unfortunately, he hasn't made the best choices in his life with alcohol. But that's not the main cause of it. He's also got type 1 diabetes, bless him. And it just gets you in the end. It narrows your veins out. If you've not lived a healthy lifestyle, unfortunately, everything kind of catches up to you eventually. So yeah, lots going on at the moment. It's a bit of a crazy one. When you realize that, my granddad, I'm really close to my granddad. I love him so much. He's been like my dad pretty much my whole life. He's always been like a stable figure that I can actually rely on. And he's 93. He's 94 in July, hopefully, if he, keeps going. But even he's looking older. I think it might 2026. I think some years you can go with years and years and years without losing anyone that you love. And then all of a sudden, boom, a couple go, and it looks like the first one is going to be Uncle Mark. So I thought I'd just share that with you guys so you guys can understand and know it's not the sole reason I'm deflated this week. That would be a lie, but it is, there's lots going on. And I think it's easy to think that, I'm the same. I have content creators that I follow, and I just think every week, right, cool, there's another podcast there that I'm listening to. I don't really think about what's going on in their lives. But then when you start doing this stuff yourself and you start committing yourself and you start dedicating every single week to doing a podcast, you realize actually you have to push through no matter what's going on, really. Because obviously I didn't realize, I've looked the other day, there's 384 of you currently following my Spotify, and there are more that listen. That's a segue in. Make sure you're following if you're not already, because it really helps me out. And I'd be so, so grateful. That's a lot of you waiting for a podcast. And obviously I love talking to you guys. So I am not moaning. I love it. But it's just one of those things where I don't want to let you guys down. But yeah, when life happens and you've got to do content, not got to, that sounds awful. I don't have to do it. I love doing it. And that is the truth. But you know what I'm trying to say, don't you? It's like you just kind of think about entertainment. You don't really think about what's going on with the person who's creating it. And it was the same last year. I was going through a horrific breakup, and I managed to do 4 videos every single week for 10 months. I don't even know how I sat down and did that. It was mental. But I think when things are meant for you, you find a way. And this is meant for me. And just you guys being here every week. Starting out soppy. Love you guys so much. You honestly just keep me going. And commenting on my videos, you guys are starting to comment on my videos a lot now on Spotify, and it's so nice to see. Some of you just say, I've binged your podcast all afternoon. It's really easy to listen to. That is amazing, because I honestly don't know what I'm doing, guys. You're right here with me on the battleground at the front line. We don't know what we're talking about, but I'm so grateful you're here. Anyway, this episode tonight is going to be a bit of a long one. And it's about Fleshgait. I'd never heard of this, okay? So what I've done is I've gone onto Reddit, and there's someone on here called Alun Wolf. So LUNE-wolf. And they've basically written, so full credit to this person, about 5 years ago, they wrote this. Everything about Fleshgait, right? What they are, what are Fleshgaits, and the experiences that people have had with them on Reddit. Now, I love learning new things. I love just reading things. I don't always do a lot of exploration into the things that I do read off Reddit because, like I say to you, I don't know if they're real. I could spend hours and hours and hours of time deep diving into all of it to see if it's actually got any legs. But I'm not going to lie to you guys, I can't be asked. If it was like a real episode where I was like proper having, deep diving on a subject or whatever, and I really wanted to find out if things were real, it wouldn't matter. But because they're stories off Reddit, I don't really tend to deep dive on them. What was that? Oh, it's my backpack. Look at that up there. I was like, what is that? Oh, I got to tell you guys, oh my God, before I start this episode, sorry. I had a really weird experience. I don't know so I live in the UK. Obviously, a lot of you on here aren't from the UK, but if you are, you'll know that the other night we had a lightning storm without any rain or any thunder. Unusual. Apparently, it does happen. However, I was seeing videos on it that my friends had posted just saying, like, this is really weird, like lightning with no rain or thunder. And it felt like something, it was like quite eerie about it. It felt really eerie. And then another friend of mine posted a picture of the sky and she was in Spain and it looked like there was a demon in the sky and it was quite creepy. And I just got this really unsettled feeling. And obviously it's been really hot. So sleeping at night has been a bit horrendous, to be honest. And I was just up late. What day is it today? Friday, Wednesday night. I was up late. I think it was Wednesday it happened. I couldn't sleep. I was just like, you're getting irritated. And I did have the light on. I thought, right, let's just really try and sleep now because I'm not feeling that tired. I need to try and force it a little bit. Said my little prayer, turned the light off. Now, my street lights, because it was late, I'm talking like 1:45, 1:00 in the morning, the street lights go off. We've got lights in the front garden that kind of like flicker. It's like the Blackpool illuminations in there. So they're kind of like gradually like fading on and off. I'm laying there. I've got my eyes shut, probably for about 30 seconds after I've turned the light off, and my body feels unsettled. I feel like really like, ugh. And I open my eyes, and this figure glides halfway from the middle of my window. So my curtains are shut, not from right at the end of the window, like right from the middle. It glides really perfectly over to the left and keeps going out of sight. Now, I live in a bungalow currently, and my room is at the front of the house. I am so in tune to the sounds outside the window because I just know the sounds of my road. There was no one walking past. There was no car, no headlights to catch a reflection or anything. Every single time I have heard someone walk past late at night, maybe like 10 latest, 11 if it's the summer and maybe they've kicked out the local pub or whatever and they're just walking back to the caravan site. No one has ever cast a shadow from the road onto my window, ever. Sometimes you hear a fox outside. It was deathly still outside. Deathly still. And I think if it was a human anyway, it would have been a bit jolty. Like we walk up and down and we bob a little bit, don't we? This thing glided and it was turned to its side. And at this split second I opened my eyes is when it did it. Of all the time that it could have done it when I had my eyes shut and I never would have seen it, it was like I was meant to see it. Now, if you guys can tell me what on earth that was, I'd be very grateful because I honestly had a really eerie feeling about this lightning. And I know that now AI has been brought out to kind of make us feel confused about what is actually real and what's not. Massively believe that. And I've seen some videos where there is some weird things going on. Obviously, it's in America. Sorry, America. In the sky, they've captured on sort of street cameras and stuff like that. Weird flashing, like some of it was like red, like a laser show. Lots of strange things going on. It doesn't quite sit right with my soul. I'm not sure what's going on there. I didn't feel like this thing was really sinister. I didn't feel threatened. I didn't feel really scared. I just felt a bit weirded out. I'm trying to just think it was something obvious, but the more I think about it, the more it creeps me out because I'm like, it's not. No shadow's ever been cast on my window before at night. with anyone walking by. There was no footsteps outside my window. You can hear everything so clearly. It was definitely silent. It was like 1 a.m. in the morning. How was someone right outside my window without me hearing any footsteps? And how did they glide like that if it was them? Very strange. I'll let you guys ponder that one. Let me know what you think it might be if your intuition is kicking off any spider senses in the comments. Don't scare the crap out of me though, because I didn't get a scared vibe. I just felt like something was coming to check on me, or like giving me a little like warning to know that maybe what I was thinking about this lightning stuff was kind of right. Anyway, Fleshgaits. Let's get on to Fleshgaits. Now, what are Fleshgaits and what aren't they? This is a theory based on this person's experience that I was telling you earlier, this Alune wolf. So this person says, I've had several possible encounters with them during my life. I'm 24 now. And some are more obvious, some are less obvious, but there is a chance that even these encounters, experiences can be linked to them. My first sighting happened when I was a young girl. Back then, I was unsure what I'd seen with my brother, who was there with me that chilling night. The shocking encounter has never faded away. And with my other experiences from what happened to me in the past, I always ended up searching for the creature that I just encountered. Now, here we are. I'll share my theory about Fleshgaits, my thoughts, and I'll tell you what I know, what I've heard about them. So maybe you can get something useful out of this information and out of this post about this mysterious being. Note, I'm not a solid believer of all these things that you'll read. I'm just a person who wants to know more and who is always open for more information, experiences, and thoughts about these guys. Some say that Fleshgaits are cryptids, and some say they are kind of evil spirits. Now, I say that based on my experiences and others, and considering what I know about them currently, that they are more on the spirit side. I think they're spirits, and I know I'm not alone, and I'll explain why. Let's get right into it. You have to excuse me because this person, I don't think they're English from the way that they're writing. So I'm kind of just making it a bit more English, I suppose, as I go along. Now, what do they actually look like? In a non-transformed state, these beings are described as very tall and thin and pale-skinned creatures with disproportionately long limbs and claws. I mean, they sound wonderful, don't they? Something you would love to bump into down a dark alleyway. Wonderful. Their head and face is lightly similar to humans, and their nose is very small. They almost look like they don't have a nose, just a black hole where it actually should be. Brilliant. So just add Lord Voldemort into the mix and make this a party down this alleyway. They have no hair nor antlers. I mean, antlers is a bit random, isn't it? I don't know why they would anyway, but maybe I'm missing something. Their eyes are unusually dark, black, but they can glow, often white, yellow, or reddish. I actually had a story recently where someone had yellow glowing eyes in the doorway. Maybe this is what they saw. Where was that? I think someone sent me a story. I don't know. Honestly, the amount of stories I'm getting at the moment is brilliant. But it's also sending my head in such a spin that I can't remember who the hell said what I've read. I'm missing information. Terrible. I'm a terrible podcast host and I don't know why you listen to me, but I'm so glad you're here. But they glow more when they're obviously illuminated by a flashlight or headlamp or any other kind of light source. That bag is really wanting to be in this show, isn't it? It looks like a really shit version of the sorting hat. This bag will sort you into what kind of paranormal creature you are as soon as you put it on your head. You could be a cryptid. Unfortunately, if you end up a Fleshgait, you've probably picked the bad one. The sorting hat would have really stitched you up. But maybe there's like a really good one, like Poltergeist. If this sorting hat put me in Poltergeist, I wouldn't be mad because I could still pick up cakes and try and eat them. I could still try and eat McCoy's Thai chicken crisps. Love them. I think the worst one that this new found game of mine, the sorting hat, is probably a demon. That's like Slytherin. If you put this hat on and it puts you in the category of demon, it's all done. It's all downhill from there. So I've never heard anyone talk about that before, but maybe we need a sorting hat of some kind that does sort us into what paranormal creature or supernatural being we would be. And you heard it here first with me talking absolute shit. Okay? 18 minutes of your life, possibly less, depends how much I've had to edit out of this. you've just spent listening to me talk about my work backpack being a supernatural category placement. So, you know, you're welcome. This is what you're here for. This is why you tune into my podcast. Now, this person says, now they can walk on all fours and also their two hind legs. And despite their hunched body position, this is how people normally see them walking around. They're good runners, good jumpers and climbers, and their inhuman speed is well known. The thin, seemingly fragile body shouldn't mislead anyone because Fleshgaits are extremely powerful and humans are not really a match for them. Brilliant. So if you do get sorted into this category, you're basically going to mess everyone up. You have got to have a showdown with a demon because I feel like these two are powerful. Fleshgaits and demons should come together in some kind of Pokemon battle. Fleshgait, you know, and they throw the ball. I would be interested in seeing that. This is another idea. If anyone out there is smart enough to do it, make a game with supernatural creatures where we can fight each other with them. Because my goodness, wouldn't that be fantastic? Just, you know, remember where you heard it. I just had to remove the bad guys because it was behind me and it was like freaking me out a little bit, okay? But yeah, totally think that there is legs for this game. Why is it not being created already? Imagine, and then you could extend it to be like Freddy Krueger versus, I don't know, the Scream Man. And you can have full-on showdowns, Halloween Man fighting Annabelle. I think this is genius. Someone tell me I'm wrong. Someone tell me I'm wrong. I really believe we've created something here that could be beautiful and very special. Someone needs to make this work. Now, Fleshgaits are often getting misidentified, this person says, by people all around the world. Some creatures have similar body descriptions like them, but they usually don't have the well-known ability of the Fleshgait, such as mimicking voices and stealing the identity / body of someone else or something else. See, I would have called a Fleshgait a shapeshifter, but obviously not. And this person says, what I found out during the years of researching them is that there are kind of three creatures which often hides a Fleshgait behind their name and the experience of what they are connected to. Rakes, crawlers, and skin crawlers. Now, the thing with the first two mentions is that they have similar body descriptions like Fleshgaits, but I feel that these are actually just different words for the same creature. This person says, well, I don't believe that rakes and crawlers are different from Fleshgaits. I believe that Fleshgaits getting mentioned as rakes and crawlers often, but what about skinwalkers? Now, I don't really know what they're talking about there. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't really know what rakes and crawlers are. So skinwalkers have nothing to do with Fleshgaits. They are Navajo, medicine men. I don't even know if I've said that right. Who are able to transform into animals and just rarely take the shape of humans. Why? Because they are not as malevolent as Fleshgaits. And based on the reports and experiences that people have shared, I can say that many of the skinwalker-linked attacks were actually made by a Fleshgait. Okay, that makes sense. If you look closely and search for skinwalker encounters on different platforms like YouTube, you'll see that people tend to collect many Fleshgait and Wendigo encounters. I've heard of the Wendigo stuff under the name of skinwalker encounters. This is a popular topic, so millions of people automatically think that basically they've just had a skinwalker encounter, which is obviously not true. And yeah, basically their knowledge of the image of the Fleshgaits are getting mixed up with skinwalkers. It's hard to make the difference between the Fleshgait and the Wendigo because these creatures look more similar to each other, but their origin is obviously different. And one thing at least in common with them, they are both spirits. However, the Wendigo often was a human once. Now listen, I'm not going to read the rest of this because this person can't really write in English too well. So I'm kind of fighting for my life trying to understand what they're saying. I have found some Reddit stories with people who have had terrifying encounters with these Fleshgaits, and I thought we need to read them together, don't we? That's what we need to do. This first encounter is from someone called Man Bear Piglet 2, and he wrote it 5 years ago on Reddit. So this person says, I don't know if I 100% believe the stuff on here, but I will say that when I was a teenager, I went on a hike in south-central PA by myself in the Appalachian Mountains. It was a day I was playing hooky, so there was nobody else there at the small trail. At least, I couldn't see them. You had to drive there. There was no foot traffic. I was young and had been talking, singing, horsing around the whole time, totally unconcerned. Yelling things off the top of mountains, etc. I mean, this sounds so therapeutic. I love this for this person. On the way down from the top of the mountain, I heard my dad's voice call my name and ask for help. I thought I was having a stroke and stopped and almost started to follow, thinking, what the fuck is my dad doing here? Did he follow me or something? Then I came to my senses and realised that my dad was sitting in his office like an hour or more away. I heard it 2 more times in the space of a minute or two, call me by my name and tell me to come here and help me with something. I have never run so fucking fast. I used to do this hike in bare feet, and I remember fucking my feet up hurrying down the mountain. I never went back, and to this day, I don't know what the fuck that was. Well, I mean, there's lots going on here, isn't there? One, you've played hooky. You know, you probably shouldn't have been there on your own in the first place. And 2, you weren't wearing shoes, mate. Like, that's just such a concern of mine that you've walked around these places not wearing shoes. You've got to be ready to run at all points. Okay? You've got to be ready to run. You don't know, especially if you're in the Appalachian Mountains. Come on, like, we all know the stories. I'm English, for goodness sake, and I've heard all of them. I've never even been there. Yeah, you wouldn't catch me bloody dead walking around there and with no shoes. Just my bare grills out, you know? Terrible. Now, this next person their name is Cancer Kane, and they wrote this 4 years ago. And they say, well, shit, now I'm even more terrified of my woods. Let me explain. So it began in 2018, and I was waiting for the bus by myself. And as I waited, my sense slowly started to freak out. And when the bus was turning the corner, I saw, then they put in brackets, and I was fully awake, by the way, a headless pale deer jumped through the woods next to the bus. After that, every time it was nighttime-ish and I was near the woods, I would get a feeling like something was watching me. Then in 2021 or 2022, me and my brothers were climbing up a hill, and they've put in brackets connected to the woods, by the way. And when we got to the top, we started dicking around and howling and stuff, when one of my brothers with a headlight was looking into the woods when we saw a pair of glowing eyes. Then mine and my brother's instincts kicked in and we started screaming. We tried to convince our cousins and other brothers to come with us again, but they refused. So after a while, me and my brother started to go down. When out of nowhere, my brother and cousin started running past us, yelling at us to run. And as we run, I started to fall back, and I shit you not, all I heard was human breathing behind me. Luckily, we managed to get to the house and stayed in there for the rest of the night. And the most recent was either 7 or 8 months ago, which, to basically recap, I was chilling on my bed. Then a hissing, moaning sound in a voice of a young boy started coming from the window. It sounded like it kept saying, "Ska," and kept on saying it for 3 or 4 minutes before it eventually left. And the final encounter, up to date, took place 5 months ago. And I was downstairs getting some water when I see eyes look at me from the window for a few seconds before disappearing. Jesus Christ, that is awful. So I run upstairs and put stuff against my door. The fucker tried to get in and did move the door pretty decently. And they put in brackets, I put a dresser on the door and other heavy objects that I could find. But it didn't come in. And I managed to grab a knife. But as I did, I saw its hand. God, its hand. All the fingers were disproportionately different sizes and had sharp fingertips at the end. I sat on my bed waiting and having a death grip on the knife, but all it did was stare at me from the crack of my doorway. Shut up. That is awful. I still remember its eyes staring into me. Eventually, I somehow slept, and when I woke up, it was gone. The worst part is that I know it's fucking toying with me, and god damn it, I'm scared of seeing it fully. I mean, that's pretty creepy. This person, God, their name, I don't know if I can read their name to you. I don't know if we should be trusting people with names like this. The name of this person is I Poop on Your Mum's Boobs. I mean, of all the stories I could pick, I need to start doing better research, don't I? I picked this one. So I hope you enjoyed the name. This episode's a little bit rogue, isn't it? This person says, I have seen a Fleshgait, and they said basically I stumbled in this forum by accident from someone else talking about an adjacent story in the Hoh rainforest. They're talking about a picture that is actually in the thread, which I've just read off, and it says that artwork is actually a very accurate description of what I saw run across the road. Now, I actually have this picture, I'll see if I can edit on this video to show you exactly what it looks like. And if I do, you know, I'll whack up here or something for you to see. It looks creepy as hell. So this person says, a friend of mine and I saw it driving to his cottage on the same old logging roads around Flower Station, Calabogie in Ontario, Canada. Calabogie? Someone from Canada, help me. How would you say Calabogie? I mean, if it's Calabogie, that's brilliant. It feels really cool. But if it's Calabogie, that's gross. You know, these roads have about 60 to 70 foot, almost directly straight down drops each side. Very deep and very steep. Like one slip and you're never climbing back up steep. As we were driving there, maybe between 2:30 a.m., something burst out of the woods, growing out of the roadside drop, and I saw it. First, I saw the long arm stretching about halfway into the road, and then the main body and part of the legs, as it propelled forwards in a dog-like run, and then the legs and feet disappeared into the other side of the abyss below. Keep in mind the previously mentioned, almost sheer drops on both sides, and this thing was fast enough to only remain in my vision for a couple of seconds, flinging at crazy velocity across the road, and it managed to gain that much speed while running what would be up an almost vertical surface. Also, it was large enough that, with legs stretched out each way, I never saw it in full frame of vision across the road. Now, these roads are old logging roads, perfect enough space for two Ford F-150s to pass side by side and narrowly both pass unscathed. Very spooky indeed. That's very weird. Can you imagine just driving down a road with your mate at that time in the morning and some dog-like huge creature just comes propelling up and then runs off the other side? Just think about that for a second. Let the reality of that sink in, because that is an absolute horror film right there. I don't even know what I would do if I encountered that situation. All I know is that my soul would leave my body. How do you live with seeing that after you've seen it? It's weird. Anyway, this person's name is FalseCow9158. Really weird names on Reddit. And they say, I had been homeless for 2 years when I found the Shady Acre apartments complex. Before that, I'd been sleeping under roadways and behind dumpsters, which were some of the lowest points in my life. Having found the mostly completed apartments being abandoned before they were officially completed was like hitting the jackpot for someone like me. Tucked away in a cleared lot nestled against the woods on the slower part of town, the Shady Acres was a complex for newer families and lower income individuals, but somehow it found itself never being finally completed. The walls were not painted and the floors were not installed, but aside from the minor features, the place was practically livable. Of course, the electric wasn't working alongside the water and plumbing, but as the saying goes, beggars can't be choosers. I peeked my head inside as I entered the first floor. Tools, materials, and odds and ends still laid strewn about as if someone was going to come back and finish the job, or at least clean it up, but it appears they never did. I grabbed a sizable pipe laying on the ground just in case. Homeless people, if startled, can and will turn violent very quick. I did a brief inspection of the main floor, peeking my head inside different ways to confirm that I was alone in a substantially sized building, but sure enough, I couldn't find anyone else. As I inspected the main floor, I found a stairway. A metal door once stood in the way, but now laid on the ground. It was clear that someone damaged it with some type of tool in order to keep it open. I went to the stairway and looked inside. The natural light provided by the sun, aided by the many open windows, could only spill over so much. Inside was a set of stairs going both upwards and down below. I didn't have a flashlight, but what natural little sun entered the stairwell was just enough to give me the courage to explore upwards. I went up the metal stairs quietly, so as not to alarm anyone else to my presence here. The second floor was nearly identical to the first. I walked down the halls, gripping the pipe, ready to defend myself from any unknown attacker. Again, much like the first floor, I didn't see anyone. However, I did find troubling signs of people having lived here at one point. I saw an old mattress littered with trash and old cigarettes, clothes tossed in a pile in the corner of the room. Several dark stains covered the floor, and one splattered on the wall next to the head of the mattress. My heart sank. It was more than likely something sinister had been committed here. I was going to turn and leave, but alongside the disheartening evidence of someone being here, I found a flashlight and an old pistol. I took both and checked the gun to see 3 bullets remaining in the cylinders. I was going to leave, but seeing now that I had a gun and a flashlight, this changes things. The flashlight worked perfectly, emitting a strong blue LED light on the stained wall when I clicked it on. I still kept the pipe with me as a backup, but the pistol was now gripped firmly in my right hand. The second floor had bits of pieces of trash here and there, but nothing as concerning than what was in that one room. I entered the stairwell with my flashlight guiding me. Unlike the first 2 floors, the third floor had an actual door standing at the entrance. Lucky for me, the handle turned slowly and granted me access. A quick inspection of the door revealed a marvellous find. The door could be locked from the inside. If this floor was clear, this would be a magnificent setup. I could lock the door and prevent any vagrants much like myself coming up here and killing me in my sleep. All I would have to do is verify that the door was clear, and I would be all set. The third floor had varied greatly from the second. No bits of drywall on the floor or discarded nails laying haphazardly. There still wasn't any electricity, but nothing my new flashlight couldn't handle. The floor was unfinished but oddly clean, as if it was getting prepped for carpet or new flooring before this place had shut down. I cleared each room slowly, making sure to check every closet and cupboard before finally letting my guard down. I went back up the stairway and locked the door to prevent anyone else from coming up. I picked a room facing the parking lot, and that way I could see out if anyone was coming. I spent the rest of the day in my newfound home. The flashlight and the gun were an amazing find, but the unsettling sight of the bloodstained floor and walls was something that still concerned me. Maybe it was something else. Perhaps someone spilled something and it just looked bad, I thought to myself, trying not to freak myself out so much. The thought also crept into my mind about how I was yet to inspect the basement and what horrors lurked down there. From being homeless, I was fairly paranoid. I made myself a game plan for tomorrow that I would go out and find cheap furniture and food to fill my bare-bone apartment. It would take several trips, but well worth the effort. Nighttime and boredom eventually found me. I sat in the corner of the room, trying to get comfortable and let sleep carry me into tomorrow, but it was difficult. Sure enough, I managed to fall asleep, but staying asleep was another story. I woke up in the middle of the night, and I didn't have anything to check the time with, but it was several hours before the sun would be rising. I got up feeling the urge to go to the bathroom. This complex didn't have running water, so I would have to go outside to relieve myself. I grabbed the gun and the flashlight and walked over to the stairway and unlocked the door. I went down the 2 flights of stairs and walked out back to go to the bathroom. The back of the complex was as neglected as the complex itself. Tall weeds filled the field that stretched out to the dark trees. Moonlight was scarce and a cool chill breezed over me as I went to the bathroom. I glanced at the complex as I did my business. Anxiety had yet to find me as I was still sleepy. I could hear cars off in the distance and the nearby highway, but no animal life could be heard. It was probably too cold for them, I thought, as I pulled my pants up and made my way inside. I entered the hollow shell of the first floor. Stealth was not my main concern, seeing as that sleep was my only goal. I entered the stairway, ready to ascend back up to the room of safety when I stopped. For the briefest moment, I could have sworn I heard what sounded like mumbling down below. My flashlight was on, but I didn't dare shine it down into the basement. In fact, a moment of curiosity washed over me as I turned my light off and listened in the stairway. I gripped the gun as I stepped over to the stairs that led downwards. My suspicions were confirmed as I felt my way down a step or two to hear more clearly the rambling of someone down there. I paused for a moment, unsure of what to do. Whoever was down there sounded as if they were speaking and no one else was responding. Perhaps a mentally ill person took shelter down here? I walked back up the stairs silently as the soft mumblings of whoever was down there slowly faded beneath the stairs. I was fairly fit and mentally strong, so having an interaction with someone would be more likely in my favour. I made it to the 3rd floor, and the sound was no longer existent. It was clear that the distance between us had enough cushion to drown out the sounds from either of us, which was a relief. I made sure to lock the door to the stairway before heading back to my room. Although the realization I wasn't alone in this building was brief and honestly quite harmless, it made finding sleep all the more difficult. I don't know if I slept much that night, but I woke up feeling very tired. I got up and glanced out the window to see the complex parking lot empty and the sun beaming over the distant trees. I unlocked the stairwell door and went down the stairs and outside. I spent the day in town getting things ready for my new place. The local thrift store had a cheap air mattress that I purchased, but it didn't come with a pump. I loaded up with other essentials like huge galleon-sized jugs of water and food that was easy to make or didn't require power. After making a trip or two back to the empty complex, my room was decent enough for me to not have to worry about it for a week or so. The only thing I wasn't able to work out was the bathroom situation, which would require me to go down a set of stairs and back facing the woods. I was going to go down to the basement later that day, but caught up doing other things, and by the time I was available, the sun had set. This wouldn't affect the actual lighting of the basement, obviously, but I didn't want to face whatever was down there and come up to a pitch black night. Besides, whoever was down there didn't seem to be aware of me or the setup, and that was enough comfort for me to leave that problem for another day. I made sure to use the bathroom around the back before going up to my room. I didn't want to have to make the hike in the middle of the night again. While I was using my bathroom, I peered out into the woods several hundred yards away. I wasn't sure how long I would be able to keep up the abandoned apartment situation, so I briefly considered checking out the woods as a backup if I were to be found out. Again, that would be another task that I would save for daylight. The woods seemed just as terrifying as the dark basement below. I went back inside, flashlight in hand. As I approached the stairwell, I noticed that on the ground there's dark streaks of mysterious liquid leading down the stairs. The stains mixed with the unfinished floor looked ominous. It was hard to tell what it was exactly, but I didn't like what I was seeing. I turned my light off, and as I entered the stairway, as to not alert who was below, I made sure to be quiet, but my pace was quicker than what it probably should have been. I opened the third door and locked it behind me. I did a quick inspection of the third floor as a safety precaution, but everything looked how I left it. I was tired from all the walking, mainly having to carry all my stuff around and setting up my room took all my energy. I laid on my air mattress and closed my eyes, trying not to think about anything as sleep began to grab hold of my consciousness when a faint noise jarred me awake. It was subtle, but my mind being on high alert was able to detect movement down below. Normally, I wouldn't have heard whatever was down beneath rummaging around, but since the complex didn't have windows to insulate the noise, I could clearly hear the sound of someone walking around. The shuffling wasn't terribly loud, but whatever it was clearly working its way up the complex. Creepy. What concerned me wasn't the noise itself, but rather how things sounded. There was a hint of stealth in the movements, like whoever it was didn't want to be detected. I followed the sounds beneath me as I laid in the darkness. I lost track of where they had went when they were over near the stairwell. I sat up on my mattress and looked in the direction of the stairwell. Did I lock the door to the stairs? I thought. I had been so busy that day that it was very likely I forgot. I got up slowly, doing my best to keep my sound low. In my hurry, I only brought my flashlight to guide me through the dark halls. I quickly made it to the stairway door and tugged on the handle. I had remembered. I breathed a sigh of relief and turned off my light. I sat by the door, my nerves slowly getting worked up. I need to stop overthinking, I whispered as I sat in silence after spending 15 minutes trying to locate the sound beneath me. I was ready to get up and head back to my bed when a jostling of the door handle startled me. Someone was outside the door. A brief rustling on the handle shocked my anxiety as I sat in darkness. I could hear someone talking to themselves, but the handle had stopped shaking. Whoever was on the other side had stopped their attempt to gain entry, but still stood outside the door. I stared at the door, petrified of what would happen if the door lock no longer held. Would it be just another person like me seeking refuge and wanting to spend the night with a roof over their head? Or was it something else? The person on the other side of the door left the door almost immediately, but still stayed within the complex. Fear gripped me to that door, not allowing me to move. It was clear that this building had another uninvited guest, but that wouldn't last. As I was debating on how to proceed, I heard another sound, but this one didn't come from the other side of the door, but from beneath me. The piercing sound of a shriek filled the complex. Whoever had the misfortune of finding themselves on the lower levels began to shuffle around. They tried to get to the first floor, but I could hear a struggle, then more screaming coming from the stairway. The sound of the commotion erupted. Screams of pain and terror echoed up the stairwell, but not for long. The screams quickly died, and the sound of something being dragged slowly faded into the basement below. This is weird because I thought that there was no one else on the first floor, but maybe someone else, maybe people just come in this complex all the time and leave. This person says, I couldn't be sure, but it sounded as if I'd just heard a murder take place. I sat by the stairway all night, eyes wide. I couldn't bring myself to calm down enough to enjoy the luxury of sleep. When the sun finally rose, I found the courage to get up and head to my room. I didn't go outside that day, despite having the urgent need of using the bathroom. I ended up using an empty room and designated that as my bathroom area until I figured out how to get out of this place. I had enough food and water to last me a couple of days, so I had time to figure out what I wanted to do. During the day, sleep finally overcame me and I drifted to a realm of peace, but that wouldn't last. I woke up later in the day. The sun was completely smothered behind rain clouds and the loud rumblings of thunder rolled in the distance. I could hear a few droplets hit the roof and windowsill, a prelude of what was to come. The complex was much darker now. My flashlight was needed for just about everything. The day was only going to get darker, so I had to decide. Stay another night and hope I could evade notice for 10 or so hours, or sneak my way out of there. I grabbed the pistol and decided to try my luck. I packed up as much stuff as I could carry in one take and headed for the stairs. I made my way over to the door and unlocked it. My light beaming into the thick darkness below, I made sure to check the coast was clear before leaving my sanctuary. I slowly descended the stairs, doing my best to navigate the metal stairs while keeping my noise down. I slowly completed the first flight of steps, and nothing seemed out of place. On the second floor, my fears had been confirmed. I could see drag marks leading to the stairs with stains accompanying it. I wanted to check the second floor, but my nerves wouldn't allow it. The drag marks continued down the step, leaving thick stains of blood and bits of pieces of guts. That wasn't just a killing, it was a mutilation. Whoever had done this was disturbed, and the last person I wanted to encounter in this dark stairway. I needed to leave. The rain had really begun to come down now. I would get soaked the second I stepped outside, but I had to do it. I was frustrated by this new development, since I would not be able to hear as well if something was heading in my direction. I worked my way down the first floor, but halfway down, my light reached something at the bottom of the stairs that stopped me cold in my tracks. Standing in the corner of the stairway, next to the exit, stood an absolute horrid creature, stood hunched facing the corner. My light only caught the lower half of the figure before I turned off my light, but it wasn't enough for me to piece it together. The brief moment of horror revealed something blocking my exit. Had it not have been standing, I would have thought it was a rotted corpse, flesh peeled from what limbs I could see, and bone appeared to stick out of the lower spine. I didn't get to see the rest of it, and I'm kind of glad I didn't. I held my breath as my heart began to race. I was immersed in darkness with whatever this thing was, about a dozen or so feet away from me. Rain and thunder continued outside and now thankfully concealing my sound. I couldn't see anything, but what little I could hear, it didn't sound like it had moved. I stood petrified on the stairs, knowing full well I wasn't going to make it out of here this way, at least in one piece. In moments like this, you don't really think clearly. You can only think of survival and nothing else. I had never seen anything like this before. I wasn't sure what kind of gun I had, or even if it would affect this creature in any meaningful way, but I wasn't going to test it. I began to backstep up the stairs awkwardly. My hands were full, and my heavy backpack made the unnatural backpedaling even more difficult. I went for another step back when my shoe didn't clear the step and I fell backwards. Out of reaction, I dropped my gun and the flashlight to brace myself. reaching out for the non-existent handle rails to catch my fall. The thud of the heavy flashlight on the metal stairs clamoured loudly as it fell down the stairs, echoing in the stairwell. I gasped. A shock of anxiety and dread flooded my system. Without a doubt, I had gained the attention of whatever lurked just beneath me. I dropped my backpack to lighten my load and felt around for the gun. Shrieks filled the complex, and in an odd turn of events, it would appear that I had startled whatever it was down there. I could hear shuffling beneath me. Its attention focused briefly on the flashlight that came to a stop, buying me precious time to find my only weapon to defend myself. I felt around, my hands padding the ground, feeling the still wet stains of the drag marks from earlier. I was so focused on finding the gun, I hadn't noticed the creature was no longer interested in the flashlight and had begun ascending the stairs. Finally, I felt something solid and gripped it tightly. It took a few moments to orient myself with the weapon, but before I could, I was tackled on the ground. Immediately, I felt sharp pain in my side as if I was being attacked. I could feel claws begin to slash my outer coat and heavy pressure on my chest. I pressed the barrel in the direction I heard shrieking and felt something solid. I pulled the trigger 3 times and my hand was knocked back from the power. The gun burst briefly illuminated the area. The flashes of images haunted my vision. I could briefly see in those very few moments what appeared to be a decomposing demon. It was so quick and I was in so much pain that I wasn't able to process everything right then. The pressure relieved off my chest as it seemed I had injured my attacker. However, I still heard movement squirming around on the ground and loud horrifying screams. I left the gun in my backpack with the stuff and ran past the sounds of shuffling. I went to the stairs and went as quickly as I could without falling in the dark. The pain in my side seemed to disappear as adrenaline began to pump into my system. I had made it to the first floor and kicked the flashlight I had dropped earlier, so I picked it up and turned it on and ran out of there. I left the complex with whatever that was still screaming inside. The warm rain slowly drenching me the further I jogged away. The screams never did stop. They just muffled the further I went into the dark, rainy night. As I got a good distance away, a part of me considered looking back to see if my demonic attacker was pursuing me, but not looking back would be a risk I was willing to take. That is terrifying, isn't it, that story? That one was so brilliant. I only got those few. I only thought, do you know what? That is probably the one that is absolutely horrific. The reason I wanted to do a episode on Fleshgaits is because I'd not really heard of them. I'm learning a lot about going through forums and just, picking up bits and bobs about what people have experienced. And Reddit is probably one of my favorites. You know this by now. These creatures, people are having experiences with. I mean, obviously, we've got to take it with a pinch of salt. It's Reddit. We don't know if it's real or not. But people have had really weird experiences with them. And I know that a lot of stuff, I know that obviously there's people getting mixed up with skinwalkers, which I believe are more in the Appalachian Mountains and stuff like that. But it's all much of a muchness, isn't it? You don't want to be bumping into anything like that on a dark night when it's raining. It's just terrifying. There's no other word for it. But if anyone out there has had an experience, it's probably going to be more so Americans, because I just think there's some weird energy and stuff going on in America in certain areas. And it feels like these creatures kind of live in the Appalachian Mountains, don't they? And certain areas like that. I don't know if we really have any areas in the UK that are like that, but if anyone's got any stories that they've heard or they've had an experience themselves with what sounds like could be a Fleshgait, please do let me know. I'd be really interested. But as usual, thank you for being here. Hopefully you've enjoyed tonight's episode. Let me know if there's anything you want me to talk about in the comments. I think my next podcast, I'm not sure, don't hold me to it, it's going to be about creepy forest experiences, because I'm all for that. I love that too. So you guys have the best week and just take care of yourselves. Have a bit of you time. Go for a lovely walk or do something that helps you decompress. That's the vibe of today, especially after that bloody story. Jesus. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye.